So we're in Afghanistan, and we keep on getting his intel reports. They're like, hey, there's this new terrorist group in Iraq called ISIS, and they're like doing all this terrible stuff. But so actually that experience of almost shooting these little girls, and again going through that whole process, when people talk about like combat stress and this and that other thing, that was the one thing that really messed with my head. And I realized, I was like, man, these little girls are caught in the middle of this war. And that got me to start thinking about civilians. It got me to think about what's going on with civilians who are caught in the middle of this war. Like when those little girls turned around and ran away, where did they go? Who did they run back to? I don't know for sure that they were bombers. But they ran back to somewhere where the Taliban's going to control their life. And that was one of the big reasons why I ended up getting out of the military a few years later, because I realized I just started looking at the world different. I started looking at all these different civilians who don't have SEALs and Green Berets and Rangers to help them in when their village is being attacked and they're being overrun and their village has been slated for genocide. They don't have someone to help them. And so that's why I started my organization, Stronghold Rescue and Relief, was to protect and care for families in war zones. And I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. I didn't know exactly how it was going to turn out and like where we are today. But that was the catalytic moment that shifted. That was the first step on that journey of looking at the world in a different way and thinking about the people caught in the middle of these horrible, horrible situations. Yeah.
The crazy thing about being in this studio is when people like you start telling a very visceral story like that, especially the life and death stuff, let's call it what it is. Mm-hmm. You're telling it, and I'm picturing you do an amazing job telling the story, by the way. I feel like I was there on both of those. That was pretty incredible. But I'm picturing all of it, but as I'm watching you especially physically do it, like when you had that part where you look down the scope and you're like, I can see her fully in my scope. I know you can see her right now, mm-hmm. like it was a second ago. Mm-hmm. And that's a wild thing to me, because you're very lucky in that you didn't end up having to do that. Mm-hmm. So that's a great thing. But it's still, like you said, it still leads to other questions like what became of her, what happened. But mm-hmm. at least it wasn't you that had to make that Reaper type decision like, oh fuck, this is it. Mm-hmm. But still, that's gotta fuck with your head, because there's so many other soldiers who have served in those types of areas that you know and don't know, who have maybe had to make a different decision there, and you wonder what happened to all those kids too, and what it's all for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a buddy. He unfortunately passed away. His name was Marcus Mendolia. I was in the SEAL teams with him. And a different mission. I wasn't on this particular mission, but he was in another area of Afghanistan. And he was in a situation where rough situation. He basically had to make a split-second judgment call. He made the right call. They were taking fire from a building. He saw someone in the window of that building, fired, took him out, and it turned out to just be a woman who was not an armed combatant. But she very well could have been, spotting. I don't know. So you kind of run through all those. You run through all those things. I have another buddy. I won't mention his name, but they set off a charge to. This is the same deployment. So they set off a charge to breach this compound. A piece of shrapnel goes up, somehow cuts through this tree, and just randomly goes through a window, and kills a little baby, like a little 1-year-old baby. Just slice the kid right down the middle. Basically, this piece of shrapnel, and it's just these freak horrible things. And so when you look at war, nobody really thinks about the people that are in the middle of it, just totally caught and totally defenseless. They have nothing. And again, that's why with my organization, that's why we do what we do, because we go into places where they'll never be able to pay us. They'll never be able to help us. They would love it. They would love it if they had some SEALs and some Rangers to come in and help them. And they're facing genocide. They're getting bombed. I just got a photo yesterday. One of our ambulance teams evacuated a guy who got hit with a Burma Army drone. They just dropped an 81 millimeter right in his village. And so his thigh is like completely blown out. And our team of locals there, evacuated him, treated him, evacuated him. And stuff like that happens all the time. I get stuff like that 3-4 times a week on my phone, right? That's just in Burma. And that doesn't include all the stuff that's going on in Africa. That doesn't include obviously Ukraine. You look at Hezbollah and Hamas hitting Israel. There's so many this stuff is going on all the time. And so my life work and my life focus is really trying to help people understand these conflicts, but then also help the people that are in the middle.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. That's coming up because like you had a clear decision, like even at a young age, after already doing a lot with the Navy SEALs, but then decide to do this on your own. But you had said you already explained how you basically had to hop out of there in Afghanistan, and they presumably took whatever bases those were because the Afghanis probably couldn't hold it, but you were saying at the same time this is going on, I remember this summer very well. It was summer 2014 is when ISIS was popping off. You had the Daniel Pearl thing. I think the guy's name was like Jihadi John or something who was slicing off everyone's head. And, you had this new caliphate that made Al-Qaeda look tame. As crazy as that sounds, you're not on that battlefield at that time, but how much information or intel like what types of things are you guys hearing and talking about at the time and within your team about whatever the hell's going on over there with ISIS?
Yeah, so there's actually some funny correlations there. So we're in Afghanistan, and we keep on getting these intel reports. They're like, hey, there's this new terrorist group in Iraq called ISIS, and they're like doing all this terrible stuff. And we're like, what? Yeah, this is the first that we're hearing about it. These intel reports, and so then we were told, yeah, the other guys from SEAL Team 1 that are sort of in the standby unit. That's there's always a unit that's on standby to respond to things. That team got dispatched into Iraq, and we know all these guys. One of the guys who was dispatched into there, my buddy Mikey, he's still active, so I won't mention his last name. But my buddy Mikey, he was with that platoon that went into Iraq with the first U.S. boots on ground to deal with the ISIS situation. And there was another guy who was an officer who I went through training with. Who was also assigned to this. And so we keep getting these reports, and we're kind of, talking to our buddies, through, chat and messenger and stuff like that. But come to find out, my buddy Mikey and this other officer I had gone through training with, they were the guys calling in all the airstrikes on the ISIS, on all these ISIS convoys. So you remember like the convoys that were just, 50, 60 ISIS trucks, and they'd all just get just destroyed on the ground. That was like my roommate was the guy calling in all those airstrikes and
nice.
and controlling all the aircraft. He was a JTAC, a Joint Terminal Attack Controller. Basically, just means you're a combat air traffic controller. So that's going on, and then so we're hearing about the whole ISIS thing, and then I left Afghanistan a little early to go refill that crisis response.
Right,
group.
with that other team. Okay.
Yeah.
But then you come back to America, right, to basically go into another 18-month training type period?
Yeah, so you do 2 years with that team, so 18 months, 6-month deployment. So at the end of our 6-month deployment, our 2-year cycle is over, and then all the platoons get at the time, this is how it worked. All the platoons then got shifted. So I got put into a new platoon. I know a lot of the guys there, but everything just sort of gets jumbled around, and you start your 18-month cycle for your next 6-month deployment to wherever.
Right. Are you those thoughts you described a few minutes ago about, some other callings on around the world and helping with people like this? Are those thoughts creeping in already at this point?
Oh yeah.
Where you're like, meaning, are you the better way to ask it? Are you at the point when you leave what was that called? The secure team, the backup team?
I'm not going to say the actual name of it, but basically the standby team.
Yeah. That I just wanted the term. When you leave the standby team to come back to the U.S., are you seriously contemplating at this point leaving the SEALs like now?
My plan of what I was going to do next was not solid, but no, my attention was being drawn away. And it was actually really solidified during the second deployment. So we did an 18-month workup, totally new group of guys. Again, bunch, good friends, and it was a good time. But the second deployment, that 6 months, we basically were assigned to Southeast Asia, and most of our job was training and building up the capabilities of host nation units. So our allies, and we'd work with them to build up their capabilities and stuff, which is a good mission, and it's important for America to do that. Not what I signed up to do. I didn't go through SEAL training and then just do an 18-month workup so I can train someone else how to do something.
Right.
I want to go do the job, right? Again, I understand the mission. I understand why it needs to be there. I support it, but I was like, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. And there was one of the places we went into was Thailand. We worked in Thailand. So we were working with the Thai SEALs. We were doing, just training with them, doing like ship takedowns and,
Are they any good?
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, Thai SEALs are great. Yeah, they're really good in the jungle, man. Those guys are ninjas in the jungle. They were teaching us some stuff, and it was really cool to get to work with them. But during that time, I was very aware of the war happening in Burma, and there's this genocide and all this horrible stuff happening in Burma, and it was frustrating because I was in such close proximity. I've already been to combat. I've already been to war, and I'm here in Thailand with a full platoon of SEALs, like 20 guys-ish, give or take. And we are like a 4-hour helicopter ride away from villages where people are being raped and murdered and genocide is happening. And I'm like, dude, put me in, coach, right?
Yeah.
Like, just like put me in. I can't sit here and just do this. So that was actually, we spent about, I think like a month and a half, like 6 weeks in Thailand. And during that time, I realized, oh man, like I've got to go do something. I cannot live the rest of my life being held back. Like I'm under no impression. I'm not Rambo. I'm not going to go there and like save the people of Burma, right? Or wherever. But I can go help. I can help protect the village. And if they have nobody to help them, like I'm going to go help.
My buddy Tommy G, you ever seen his YouTube channel? He's a documentarian on YouTube.
Maybe, I don't think so.
Can we pull that up, Alessi? Let's give Tommy a shout out here. That's my boy. But
nice.
A couple of my friends, Tommy G and Brandon Buckingham, are, for my money, like telling some of the best on the ground stories in the country right now, and they both want to move internationally with things as well, which is really cool.
Great.
But Tommy's got this amazing quote where he says, "I can't boil the ocean, but I can boil my pot."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's like, look, I'm a realist about the fact I am one guy, but like if I can do a piece of good right here with these people maybe that I build relationships with, and because he's going into some horrible places sometimes where things are really, really bad, but he's like, if I can help some of these people and become their friend and be the reason that some people might make it out of that type of situation, like that's a win for me. And it seems like you have a very similar idea the way you just described it. It's like, okay, I'm not going to go in and stop this genocide, but if there's people there that literally are getting no help right now that I can go help, I'm trained as a weapon of war to go be that person, be that kind of white knight in that type of situation, help whoever I can.
Yeah, and that's very much the attitude of it. First of all, that looks really great. I'm gonna have to check out his content. I can't believe I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, he's amazing. Great. He just did a documentary with Andy Bustamante, the CIA guy that comes on here a lot, and Danny Hall, my friend who's a Silver Star winner, has been on the show, where they went to the site of the Trump assassination.
Oh, no
broke
kidding.
It down. Danny Hall is one of the deadliest snipers in American history.
Oh, that's great.
And then Andy's obviously like CIA. So
yeah.
There's a lot going on there, but he's doing some really, really cool stories.
Oh, dude, baller! I love it. I think that's fantastic. My attitude. I think that's a great. I can't boil the whole ocean, but I can boil this pot. Yeah, that's how I see it, and I think that the solution to a lot of the world's problems. To quote Gandhi, if I may, be the change you want to see in the world, right? It's like, like if what happens is everybody sees all these problems, everybody sees what's going on in the world, and then everybody just sits back and doesn't do anything, right? And you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do what I do. You don't have to go into these war zones, but you can talk about it.
Yes.
You can do a podcast about it. You can, you can donate to an organization that's helping out, or you don't even need to do that. Like just help out in your local community. Like I guarantee you, your local homeless shelter needs help, almost certainly, right? Like go help there, right? So there's just get off your butt and go do stuff, and you don't have to do all that much. You don't have to dedicate your life to it.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.